Welcome to Tone Talks. Welcome to Tone Talks. Welcome to Tone Talks.
What up, y'all? This Tone Talks in the building. We having a discussion today. We talking reparations. We talking everything that's been happening this last few weeks. We gonna have a discussion about the impact of things and how everything is pushing forward. I'm looking forward to having this. I got the wonderful Yvette Cornell. Yvette, you there with me?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh man, a lot of people been talking. A lot of people been having all kind of thoughts and opinions about everything, and not everything is accurate. So as we start to look at this thing, we got to be honest. Everybody shouldn't be in the kitchen cooking. You know, when we started this ADOS thing, shout out to Ta-Nehisi Coates and the reparations piece he did in the Atlantic. Shout out to William Garrity and the work he's done on reparations. But it's a lot of other people in here talking now that didn't believe in reparations. You feel what I'm saying, Yvette?
Oh, I feel exactly what you're saying.
A lot of people believe that race, that wealth, that all of it can be fixed by just getting along and they're going to get us on the next turn. We saw what happened with Obama. We're not doing that this time. This discussion has transcended Kamala Harris and broken through to a point where we've made ADOS take over the spot that DACA took. And all these people that was on TV, they wasn't doing that. I want to make sure that we have this discussion. Yvette, join in on this. What's your opinions just generally on everything that's gone on the last 2 weeks?
Well, I think one of the things that we're seeing is what is possible. Like, everybody told us that there's no way to really have this reparations conversation, and even if you do, nobody's ever. It's a radical. They made us into this idea and believe that this was a radical idea, and that like there's no way to get people to engage, an idea which is just too far off the mainstream, and so they just kind of pushed us back the whole time. And so what you're seeing now is that it wasn't that this is just an impossibility, because you think about the fact this is the conversation right now, and it's the conversation because of ADOS. And what I want to say too is we got to stop saying this isn't about ownership, but we got to stop saying, well, I was watching. Unfortunately, I was watching what's her name from on the Breakfast Club.
We gonna get to her. Don't jump forward.
But no. I want to bring this part up first, because we're talking about advocacy, and what we got to start talking about in terms of framing advocacy. You got to stop letting people tell you that they said a certain thing at a certain time. And so I've always been here because I said I agreed. I remember Roland Martin said one time, and he said one time, well, I always said that we should hold Obama accountable. I wrote to him about it in Essence Magazine. And I remember I tweeted back to him, I said, you might as well have wrote it on your bedroom wall. Because advocacy is not something that you just say one time or do one time, or you have a meeting about, or you get together in a group and you play the banjo, or whatever you do. It is a consistent. It is an advocacy. If you don't take away anything else I say tonight, please take away the fact that advocacy is a drum beat. It's like if you hear a beat and we all listen to music that boop to the boop, boop. It's a drum beat. It's a drum beat. It's a rhythm. You hear it. You keep it going. You keep it moving. It's not something that you did one time, or you wrote an essay about, or you said you got on the record and said you support it. Understand that's not what advocacy is as we go into this conversation.
We talking Angela Rye. We talking Roland Martin. We talking The Root, Simone Sanders. We talking everybody who didn't believe 3 weeks ago, but talking now. We talking The Breakfast Club. We talking the CBC. We gonna get into it right now. I don't even know if we get to calls. I'm so fired up. Let me say this. ADOS and the people behind it, shout out to all y'all. We did this when ain't nobody believed, with no dollars. The only dollars that Yvette and Antonio are beholden to is black dollars. Black dollars that funded our projects from years ago. Somebody went on the Breakfast Club, ain't mentioned ADOS, I ain't gonna say what it is. Angela Rye went on that Breakfast Club, she was talking all this stuff. Understand this, that she was calling us bots 2 weeks ago. Then this week, when you see Pelosi jump out there on HR 40, we gonna get to that. All of a sudden, you believe, and I was always believing. All I'm saying to you is this. I'm not paying no disrespect to NCOBRA and what they've done. I'm not paying no disrespect to any other organization that's been around. But today, this discussion is very different. It's not African-centered. American descendants of slavery is American-centered. That's a very different discussion than I believe all these groups have been having. Secondly, it's a discussion centered around us taking ownership of the country we built. Not just getting repaired, but being made whole and positioned as owners. I'm coming to you now. And I say, as I look at Angela Rye, she went from the bots to back on the Breakfast Club trying to clear up that she didn't say we was all immigrants because it was only immigrants. Look, if you said it right, you wouldn't have to clear it up. She went on there, and I'm tired. Look, I done interviewed Rothstein. I done interviewed author of Color of Law, Sandy Darity, did a report with him. Matt Brunig, one of the best charting people on the net with the Federal Reserve data, came up with the data before everybody else, me and him, with a great article at the top of last year. I do all this stuff for free. I don't work for CNN or nobody else or MSNBC. All these interviews that other pundits should be doing, I'm doing just at the house. She go on the Breakfast Club just saying anything, any old numbers. I'm saying to you, when somebody talks about $1.3 trillion in buying power, that shows you that they're not serious about the economics of black folk. Look, black folks have a $1.3 trillion in buying power. But we got twice the workers of Asians. You don't understand. First of all, the metric itself is very flawed because what it does is it doesn't take into account that's largely soaps and everything else. But in addition, if you go buy a car for $50,000, you don't have $50,000 in buying power, and you didn't misspend that. But in addition, Asians have 8 million workers and $1 trillion in buying power. Ain't no articles about it. We have 16 million workers and $1.3 trillion in buying power. It's not a good metric. But then secondly, white folks have $9 trillion every year. No articles. Buying power is not a measure of wealth. You don't understand that. But went on the Breakfast Club and talked about that in context of Marianne Williamson, who sat on this chair. Understand we doing work here. Hold up. And talked about her reparations, whether you agree with it or not. And the problem is it's low, but not because of the buying power. I need you off the Breakfast Club and CNN. Understand that she also said that $17,000 is the median black family's income or black income. Then she said the white median income, because she was saying the same thing, is $170,000. That's not the numbers. If you don't know the numbers, I need you off the channel. Let's get to talking about it. What do you think about Angela Rye talking and just rumbling?
Well, one of the things that I'm realizing that I honestly did not anticipate is that everybody accuses us of being what they actually are. So you're incompetent and you don't know any of the numbers and you're not anchored in data, and you accuse us then of not doing our research. And because she said, well, Marianne Williamson's number is low. Well, what you don't know, because you haven't really researched the subject, is that Marianne Williamson herself said that her number was low. But because someone is not giving us enough money.
To us. She said it to us in that chair, though. Right there.
But because someone is not giving us enough money is not the same as you. So you're saying someone who's not giving us any money is better than someone who is giving us $100 billion.
Well,
and
well, you would say that, right? If you don't understand that you just basically misrepresented everything on the Breakfast Club. Because she says on the Breakfast Club that these different candidates are for reparations, and then she says Kamala is through tax rebates for descendants of slaves. That's not what the LIFT program is. You can't not know what you're talking about.
She doesn't know. She doesn't know what it is. She doesn't know. I realized that when I watched it. She doesn't know what it is.
The LIFT program is for just like general poor people. Kamala went on the Griot, who called us. Understand, the Griot, the Intercept, and y'all gonna get a big piece next week from us. Understand that the Griot, the Intercept, all these BuzzFeed, they all come into us for interviews about this topic because that's who you talk to, and we would have gladly talked to you had you done it right. But you said in Cobra and some other groups, and you just didn't mention ADOS, even though you saw us in your tweet thread. Then you talk about low-level activists. All this is weak.
Look, but the other part of what she did wrong, listen. You can't say the other part, what she did also was step on her own argument. That's what Angela Rye does well. She poops and falls back in it. You say on the one hand, well, she doesn't give us enough. That's just a drop in the bucket because we have $1 trillion in buying power. First of all, we've already said nobody assesses themselves people. We assess the strength of groups in terms of wealth by wealth data. We don't assess it by some buying power number that nobody has ever shown me where that number is anchored in real data. But let me just say this too. The second part about that is too, you can't say that you believe in reparations and then say we got a bunch of money, we got $1 trillion, and we just kind of throwing it away. You've contradicted your very argument, and the saddest part about it is you've contradicted yourself and you don't even know it.
We fired up. We fired up here on Tone Talks today. Again, Dash Radio, Dash Talk X. What we talking today is reparations. The revolution will not be televised. We having a discussion about everything that we've seen thus far in the last few weeks as people try to tap dance their way into like this reparations discussion after they said it's not possible. After they said that maybe we should wait. You have Van Jones go on the same Breakfast Club and basically say like we need to be patient and wait and sacrifice. Understand that I want y'all to just do this on your own tools. Take my interview with Marianne Williamson and all the pushback I gave her and the real discussion we had about data, because I understand the data because I've been doing the data, and compare that to Charlamagne interviewing all these people. And ask yourself why you listen to that. This is not a time for unserious conversations, people that ain't serious and just play. This is not a time to mix up people who interview the Migos and then interview like high-end conversational topics about mother, because the whole first part of the conversation was about mother. This is not a time for people who don't understand that you can't be talking about people of color in one sentence and then ADOS in the next one. But that's what they do over there. And that's what we saw go on with Angela Rye. And that's why it's so confusing, because we coming, y'all. I just wanted to start off the show real fiery because we coming with it today. Again, I give much respect to Ta-Nehisi Coates and the piece he did with the Atlantic. But I want everybody to understand what ADOS is bringing to this discussion is what we didn't get at the end of Coates' piece, which is what does reparations look like and who gets it? See, that's important. Because everybody been getting mad now that we done said the truth, which is only that we gonna give this to American descendants of chattel slavery. You had a whole tidbit of Charlamagne basically accusing ADOS in some way. I felt that way at least. I ain't gonna say he said ADOS of changing the Wikipedia, but then he couldn't find it. Okay, find it before you start the show if you're gonna make the accusation. Sound a lot like the Russian bots thing. All I'm saying to you is that look. ADOS is making a claim that 32 to 33 million descendants of American chattel slavery have been locked out of this country, and we don't even know it. And part of the reason that we don't know it is because the population of immigrant groups have done so well here based on the fact that these spaces are created for us, and they don't come from slavery, oftentimes come from wealth or professionals. And so they've done so well that we see their success as our success until it's time to look at success in our own families. And we got the jail. And we got the lack of wealth. We saw it in the Miami report, came out this week. Let's talk about it. I don't play with, but do nothing but data. Middle black native family was worth $11 liquid in Miami. Mirrors what we've seen in Boston. Mirrors what we saw in LA. In LA, it was $200. In Boston, it was $8. If it's that much in those three cities, what you think it is in Loudoun County, Alabama? These families are literally liquidless. I don't have no problem sharing stuff with you. I've seen all kind of stuff. My mama had me young. I share that with y'all all the time. These boomer hook people are really driving the discussion in the wrong direction because they don't really understand what the rest of black folks is going through. I don't have a civil rights pops. I got a 16-year-old pops. That's what I had. I don't mirror myself in the image of all these other discussions. I mirror myself in the discussion of now, in the data of now, in the data that I've done with Professor Darity. This is not a game where I try to cloak myself so I don't have to beat myself. So I'm having this discussion today. Dash Radio, Dash Talk X. We on the chat. You can go to YouTube, join the chat, get in the discussion, share this video. But we fighting today, not physically. Not physically, but we out here having the discussion. Go ahead, Yvette, join in.
Well, one of the things that we have to dig into I think the reason I want to stay on Angela Rye is because sometimes people are just a perfect lens for understanding what the environment looks like that we're in. And what happens with her is that you talked about her father, and he was boomer hook because he was a civil rights activist. And what she said was, she said two things. My father believed in solidarity. He did all this stuff with the Japanese and La Raza. That was a different time. But she said that he also believed in a designation for descendants of slaves. And so one of the things I'll say two things, because I don't know the specifics of what her father did in terms of what he did with the Japanese people and La Raza. That's what she was talking about. But one of the things I will say, in terms of today, you can't be it makes no sense to have a designation and then say we're just going to be like everybody else and have the same thing as everybody else, and we're not going to get anything specific for our specific justice claims. Because what you're doing is one is canceling out the other. It's like algebra. I mean, you are canceling out what you said you wanted. So the designation doesn't mean anything or make any sense if you're not hooking it to a specific justice claim that's hooked to a dollar amount, that's hooked to reparations, that's hooked to restorative justice. It's a meaningless designation. Second thing I want to say really quick. If your father did believe in this and that meant something, you should be standing in my shoes, Angela Rye. You should have been doing this work for a long time if your daddy started this work. You don't get to just like Reggie from Boston said, do your advocacy by proxy because your daddy was this and your daddy was that. You should have been doing this work a long time ago. So don't talk to me about why I'm doing this work. Talk to me about why you're not doing this work, and talk to me about how you abdicated your responsibility with your daddy being your heir, and you just decided to be a black talking head for CNN. You are the one who should be ashamed of yourself and how you're moving throughout this conversation.
There's a lot of people talking about reparations that I need up out the room. Let me give my starting five. I want William Darity starting at center. I want to have Yvette Carnell in that room. I want to have Kevin Cosby in that room. Come on, let's have the discussion. I'm gonna be in the room too. I want the president in the room. Let's start having the discussion. Because like what's happening is you got people who's supposed to just be part of the problem is that media done lost its way. American media. People who are not experts are just saying stuff as though they're experts. And then you presume they're experts because they on TV. So you got people that don't know nothing about the economics of black folks. You saw that with Angela Rye on the Breakfast Club. That data was just wrong. It was wrong. But then you see her on TV and she forms an opinion around that data that's wrong. Black families are not at $17,000 in income, and white families at $1.7. You're mixing all kind of stuff. If you're talking wealth, you're still wrong because if you need to look at it without depreciating assets, which will make black families at $1,700. But I need to know that you know what you're talking about. And I'm saying all this because then we move over. Let's talk. Simone Sanders was talking. She on CNN. Everybody got a little piece of stuff they talk about all day. They don't have enough focus on ADOS. You know what I talk about most of the time? All my videos every day? Relationships, wealth, black families, black communities, black churches. These people are talking about mothers sometimes. They don't know that much about that. Then they talk about this a little bit, DACA a little bit. Look at her thread and look at where she was talking about 4 weeks ago. It was DACA. Go look and try to find me talking about DACA without the context of black folks. And I'm saying all this because Simone Sanders goes on CNN and says that this conversation was driven forward by The Root and the New York Times. The Root has one article that came out after she said it. Like, nobody's checking. That's not how this dialogue is going. You're supposed to be able to be a whisperer and know what's going on with black folks. But I believe what's happening is that black folks done told them different now. ADOS, I want to say to y'all, what y'all done, what we've done in the last few weeks in using Twitter in appropriate ways, despite all the accusations by Simone Sanders and Angela Rye and Joy-Ann Reid that we are bots, is shown them that black folks will no longer sit by the sideline. But they got a problem, though. They got people that told them that their job is to make sure that they tell them that black folks will sit by the sideline. And I'm saying to you that the fact that they just making stuff up means that they don't need to be on TV no more. You can go neutral and not say nothing, but you can't say that The Root created the discussion around reparations. So look, You want to say anything about Simone Sanders before I go to the next point in the root?
Well, but I think, yeah, I think you just, one of the things I want to say is like these people just to get this, just, we have allowed, like, even like we talked about Angela Rye and not, your father is elderly. You're supposed to be in those shoes now. And so what happens but we just let her say anything. So even when you talk about Simone, you get to just say that. And the part of the problem is nobody fact checks. Like the Root has been doing all these. Even the article that they did after the fact about reparations was just so silly. It was so unserious. And nobody has been fact checking these people and putting them. Like even when Angela Rye was on the Breakfast Club, she says, "Well, we all have to be striving together in a certain direction." Well, you didn't think about that before you called us bots. You didn't think about striving in a certain direction before you popped online on the airport and made these little condescending, snarky remarks about you. Of course I didn't say we was all slaves. I didn't mean to say, I didn't say it that way. And she said, well, I dragged Ben Carson, so everybody should have known. When Ben Carson said we were all immigrants or something like that, I dragged him, so y'all should have known. No, you just dragged Ben Carson because he's a Republican. And you work for the party. Working for the Democratic Party is very different than working for ADOS people. And so what happens is you think because you're working for the party, it's the same. If you want black unity, here, listen, this is what you do. If you want ADOS unity, and we'll call it black in terms of ADOS black, you cannot have black unity without standing for black people. That does not mean standing up against black people in favor of the Democratic Party. And that's what Simone Sanders is doing. That's what Angela Rye is doing. They're all circling around the Democratic Party and saying, listen, I'm going to protect you from these rowdy Negroes. I'm going to protect you from the horde of Negroes headed your way.
Come on, Vet. Don't tell him like, look, I told Vet something earlier today. We talk about every day. This is the family. Breaking Brown family been running hard. Tone Talks family been running hard. Welcome to all the new family members, ADOS, to you too this morning. So look, let me say this. The Root, a lot of these pundits, they've been driving all kind of wedges in ADOS communities. The Root has written so many pieces breaking black people down by women and man, ADOS men and ADOS women. You know what ADOS does? Everybody talking about divisiveness. Hold on. You know what ADOS does? It actually makes it so that 33 million descendants of American slaves that are owed a debt are one block. Not broken down by gender or sexuality, one block. But one block that's owed wealth. Real wealth. They can't have that. And we not moving. I say all that to say to you, this is the most powerful movement since the Civil Rights Movement for black folk. We not picking up no secondary agendas. We moving for black folk. And when I say black folk in this context, ADOS folk. I shout out my allies. Let me say this. My video that I did, ADOS Explained, if you really want a primer, is on YouTube. You can check it out. Got 65,000 views. But what's interesting about the views is that 5,000 are likes. They have 5,000 likes and only 120 dislikes. That's extremely high, especially given what I'm talking about. I'm talking about ADOS getting reparations just for them. But the craziest part, hold up, is that the biggest comments are from immigrant allies saying that you guys deserve this. See, this is a rowdy bunch of people that are saying we a problem and all that. That's not the majority of immigrants. That's not the majority of people trying to understand ADOS. That is not the majority at all. We are the majority, and we come in here to claim what we were due. One other thing that I want to say before I get into this Root article is this. What you guys have to understand is when they talk about the Green New Deal or DACA, all this is like, white people doing well and giving the poor people something that they didn't have before. And I feel good about myself. Hold up. Reparations is different. That's a debt that you owe. See, I don't think we really understand that critical difference. You can't get to what you want to do extra until you do what you owe. I don't want to hear from Bernie Sanders. He was on The View today talking, and he talked real funny about reparations, said that he don't believe in cutting a check. Shout out to Sonny Haskins for actually putting his feet to the fire and saying, do you believe in reparations money for U.S. descendants of slaves? But I'm saying to you, when we start getting into these conversations, what you start to see is that when you mix in other groups that aren't descendants of American chattel slavery, you don't really understand. When you start to talk about things like Like the descendancy of slavery is one piece. That's what Angela Rye said. And Jim Crow is one piece. That's not even how the economists are dealing with it. The bulk of reparations will go to descendants of American chattel slavery because that group built this country. There's another redress to be made for Jim Crow. I need to see specific damages, and you deserve to be made whole. Understand that those are the two components. Now, if we come to mass incarceration, are you an individual that was mistreated in prison? That could be added in. But this is largely a discussion about the lost wealth of U.S. chattel slavery. I think that's a problem for most people because they didn't get here in time. I guess, if you look at it that way, because that's kind of the way they look at it. No, we were slaves here, and our families were broken up here. A lot of people that mix their identity up with all kind of pieces of things. We here to make it solid, make it rooted, and make it whole, and make it about ADOS black folk. And if you're not about that, that's okay. But you can't be in the room talking about reparations for us. What do you think, Yvette?
Well, no, not only you can't be in that room. You can't because you're a gatekeeper. Like you want to be in that room for careerist ambition. You want a singular ambition for your individual self. And what I've realized with these people too is that they're narcissists. Like everything is centered on the self and how they're being treated and what they can do and how they can move and what kind of labels they can buy and how you're talking to me. And it's just and this isn't about you though. Like when you hear somebody in there, all they're talking is me. And there's no movement that is about any kind of me. This is a movement to a certain degree of a certain group in terms of what we're going to get in terms of our claim. So, we have to understand that, and we have to know arrogance when we see it, right? Yep. Like when Angela Rye was speaking, she said something about, well, I've been thinking, we should have an equity plan because all of these businesses that will have parts of slaves, and we should have equity in their businesses. And it's just like, why you never read anything that Darity wrote? You haven't reached out. You just be you like a bad idea factory. You just throw out bad ideas. Like, why don't you consult the experts? No, that's not what you do because CNN always got you running and talking about something different depending on the day. Oh, Donald Trump says this. Bring Angela right here. Oh, Nancy Pelosi gonna do this. Give her these talking points and throw her on TV. Like, so you don't really know anything. You just know what you're given to talk about, and you know what's put out there to you. But you don't have any level of expertise on any given topic. You don't do deep work. You don't do deep study. And we can't have you in a room talking deep stuff and you don't do deep study.
You know what a real one would have said it when Pelosi said what she said? A real one would have said, I apologize for calling y'all Russian bots. Let's move on this reparations together. A real one. But instead what we got was some kind of like sleight of hand about the HR 40 bill. Let's talk about that now. Look. I'm going to tell it to y'all straight that we need a review of reparations. But unless they attach in money, I'm not really with the study until they commit to dollars as well. The reason why I say that is that this is not a question of liability. They don't need a study to find out if they need to pay trillions. They know it's trillions. It's a matter of where it's going to go and how it's going to be impacted. If they're not attaching money, what can happen is they just drag this thing out. I don't want to see for Nancy Pelosi to come out and say that, it connects to what Marianne Williamson said when she sat in this chair. Marianne Williamson said that the status quo tried to commandeer the message. Well, you said that, and then you just went off into the sunset at Howard. Now, the next thing is just as big a problem. Conyers used to bring this bill up annually. It dropped to the floor, and guess who picked it up? Sheila Jackson, right? Right, Yvette?
Yep.
The problem I see is that Sheila Jackson, when the discussion starts to happen, this discussion needs to be ADOS-led. I believe that that ADOS-led group needs to recognize the ADOS people that aren't in that room, and I believe that Darity should be there as well as us as well, as representatives of you. But I want y'all to understand the conundrum, the issue of Sheila Jackson sponsoring this bill. And how it makes it so we have to have an eye that we shouldn't have to have on, is this even the right person? What do you think, Yvette?
Well, I think you have to have that context. I never will forget there was a picture I couldn't find on Instagram before the show where I don't know whether they were in Barbados. I don't know whether they were in Barbados, but there was a prime minister or whether they were in Jamaica. And in the tweet, it was like, I didn't know that so many members of the Congressional Black Caucus were children of or either immigrants themselves or children of immigrants or whatever. And I was thinking to myself, I didn't know either. Because and
It's
that
such a small
poses
percentage of the
problem.
population. I mean, I don't know how y'all just ended up, this chunk of Congressional Black Caucus when you're like this much of the black population. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, and so what happens? What happens is, you know, you have to understand that like there has to be a fierceness and a ferociousness attached to like this, and what makes that happen is somebody in the chat said, "I'm tired of my people failing." In the sense of you know that everybody in your ADOS life is failing, and you know that you can tie all of that back to American chattel slavery. Like you didn't come here from a country that's an underdeveloped country where you had slavery in your country, and then you came here and had a better life. That creates sometimes a very different posture and framing for your life in terms of what America is. If America created an opportunity for you to become a congresswoman, whereas it, create an opportunity for me to get evicted and have a brother that's in jail and a mother that's on crack, then we have two very different outcomes and two very different postures toward this country. And so it doesn't mean we don't do politics similarly, but it means in terms of the fire in my belly, we're very different. And so that would be the concern.
Let me say this. I read the Root article, and I don't even know what the article said after reading it. It was a bunch of my family, and it was a bunch of gibberish, and it was no data, and I'm just, the level of our media and the way that they talk is like they go from writing about popular culture to writing about serious academic issues, and they're not understanding what their limitations are. That article needed to be given to a professor or someone else because it wasn't done well. It was actually a conservative article. I'll let Yvette speak to that in a second. It had a lot of, one writer that from The Intercept that's been writing these pieces, Bree, she actually said this is a bad article. And it is. Because it doesn't understand reparations and the possibility. It has no imagination. See, if black folks didn't have no imagination, we'd still be in chains. See, if black folks didn't have no imagination, I wouldn't be here at this radio station. I would have to be at the other black radio station. See, if black folks didn't have no imagination, we couldn't be on YouTube right now talking about imagination. But that article, it's claimed the expertise and the knowledge of what isn't possible with no expertise at all. You want to speak to that Root article?
Well, yeah, the Root article kind of mocks all kind of big government programs in a way by basically saying these are all kind of pipe dreams that aren't going to happen, which is also what Roland Martin said in his tweet. He had tweets spanning from like 2010 to 2015. So what happens if you frame it that way, that these are all kinds of pipe dreams that the Democratic Party speaks to because they're in favor of their constituency? What it kind of sounds like to me is that you're a person who doesn't believe the power of government to like improve the quality of life of people in a meaningful way. And that's a problem to start with, because what you need if you're going to have reparations, you need transformational government, which means government has to spend a lot of money to do what it needs to do. So if you can't, I mean, it almost read like a very conservative article. It read like it like a lot of stuff that's
Isn't
just like
owned by Univision?
scattered and confused place.
It doesn't Univision own it or something? It's not black owned.
Yeah, but on one hand they'll be like, we're on one hand they'll write about something like, we got to be more feminist and we got to stand up for trans people, and then on the next thing you'll make this very kind of conservative argument. The Root is very scattered ideologically. It's a place that doesn't really have an ideological commitment. They have a commitment to clicks, and that's a very different thing.
Yeah, man. Look here, 323-230-4610. I'm gonna take calls kind of hot. If you want to call in and give your opinion, I'll let you speak to that. If I missed some calls earlier because we was trying to set it all up. Another person that I feel just doesn't believe in reparations but won't say no because she knows that's the end for black folks with her is Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris went on the Griot with the video and said what she said. You know who the Griot contacted in their article? Me and Yvette. They contacted me and Yvette, and they wrote an article. Shout out to Byron Allen, owns the Griot. But they contacted us, and basically I said, we're not going through another Obama. And I believe that in a lot of ways what's starting to happen is that black folks don't understand that we need to demand everything and let them fall short. Let me take the first caller tonight. Caller, what's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Tone. Hey, Yvette. This is Mike. I'm calling from Louisiana, Georgia, ADOS in the house. You and on fire tonight. You are bringing it.
What's your take on everything? Give me your take.
My take on it is, Tone, that For one, shout out to the Breaking Brown Tone Talks family that's been on Twitter. You know, let's stay engaged with the topic. Let's continue to be out front with pushing www.adus101.com. You know, push him to the data, push him to the website, push him to send Dr. Sandy Darity's work. Don't get into, you know, this back and forth with them. Just keep pushing to them the data, the information, and the video y'all doing tonight. This is an excellent video to share with your family, your friends, about this work that is going on in the ADOS community. 35 million strong. Excellent job. I love y'all. See y'all in October.
Well, I see you too, bro.
Thank you.
But look. Let's get to the boy, Roland Martin. He over there doing his channel. He live right now, Yvette. So he be in there with 13 people watching. He
live 24 hours a day, almost. I don't know.
Look, Roland did something that, you know, I'm not going to say that it's been proven, but the accusation is that he gave the question to Hillary Clinton. I don't know how he came back from that to believe that you're going to start a media company without fully addressing the problematic issue if you gave that question. One of those questions was that a black man that was on death row, that got off death row, that he wanted to bring to power. If y'all recall, Hillary Clinton got that question early. She should have got that question hot and ready from that man. Roland Martin has these tweets where he says that reparations is a pipe dream from 2012 and 2010.
And
but now, all of a sudden, you want to run on Fox Business. You want to run on Fox Business and start to answering questions. Look here, I'm gonna tell y'all this too. Stop telling me, I know y'all don't mean no disrespect. When's the Breakfast Club gonna bring you on? I got a radio station now. I'm on. I don't need to go on the Breakfast Club. Fox Business for a 3-minute segment on Fox. I don't want to do that. Look, if Don Lemon bring us on for like a long segment or just Yvette because he's down there in Atlanta, I mean like a good 15-minute segment. Shout out, because Don Lemon done said some real stuff to April Ryan about this isn't Jamaica. This isn't Jamaica. You know, I think that in a lot of ways, you got to be very, very aware of when your leaders, when people are trying to be your leaders, are just running around. What I saw from Roland with that Fox Business special was somebody that's really scattered, in my belief. I believe that in many ways he didn't expect that this reparations thing was going to take off, and he don't know what to do with it. Now, if you don't know what to do with it, just don't say nothing. Don't even use ADOS. Don't even get mad no more. We here. Just move over, go do another job. There's other jobs out there. You're probably good at some of them. But this here is going to be the new discussion. It's a new day here. Yvette, you want to say something about this before I take another caller? Again, 323-230.
No. You can take another caller. I'll respond after that.
323-230-4610. We're having the discussion. The phone lines have been lit. We've been in here. Dash Radio, Dash Talk X. You can actually, we got 1,500 people in the box. They're having this chat and this discussion. Use the super chat. Please support my channel. I'm also on Patreon, Tone Talks. We're going to be also having our conference. Our conference is coming up in Louisville, October 4th and 5th. It's going to be a powerful day of ADOS talking about not only what reparations look like, but what a black agenda looks like. Caller, what's your name? Where are you calling from?
My name's Terrell. I'm from D.C.
Shout out.
My take is I'm trying to understand, after we get the reparations and everything, how are we going to go from there? How are we going to keep our money? How are we going to keep everything back into our hands and not give it back to the people that already has it in control right now?
Let me say this to you, bro. One of the things that I see from black folks, and I'm not saying that you saying this, I've heard it from other black folks, is this belief in our culture being naturally like we spend a lot. Mm-hmm. What actually is happening is that we're an exploitation class. That's exactly what $8 means in Boston, and $11 in the Miami, and it means that we're here to be exploited. So one of the things that you need to be part of reparations is protections from the government, so that people can't exploit you, so that people can't give you subprimes instead of regular loans when you have enough money. Other thing I'll say to you is it's funny how money makes it so that you don't have to do like weird stuff like poverty crimes. So I believe that one of the things is that. The second thing is we think of reparations as just cash. It is a set of things that creates community. It is programs. It is lineage therapy. It is counseling. It is schooling. It of course it's cash as well. These things web together to create community. And what's happening right now is that we're looking at reparations through the lens of rap and music. We're looking at, Diddy did this thing. Let's get to this. I wanted to talk for a quick second about this as well. Diddy did this thing, the culture, and he with Meek Mills, and we doing it, and we shining, and all this. What's happened is that they not going to be able to talk about reparations in the room either. I know Diddy and Trump been friends. We're not doing economic revitalization plans. We aren't doing economic revitalization plans. What I'm saying to you is that this is a discussion that's going to be led by academics, leading activists, by people in the know, so that black folks get the full due of what they're owed. Yvette, you want to say something to what he asked?
Well, no, I think the only thing that we can have at this point is like a focus kind of laser-like agenda, right? So I mean, there's one of the things that we have to be careful not to do is to put the cart before the horse, right?
Yes.
We can like what I keep telling people is that what this country is missing is the political will. Once you have the political will, you can figure out what that number is, how we do it, whether we have to put it in, and understand it's not just a cash payment. That's part of it. But understand that you can have that in terms of trust. There are other ways to reduce the cost for us. There are other ways for us to get the wealth and the homes, and there are other ways to keep those doors open and to make us not a group that's where we're a group where we're just prey for predators. We have to have protection from the government. There are a lot of things that have to happen, and making us a protected group and those payments is just one part of it.
It's really not about the payment. I'm talking about even like owning land and owning properties. They can also raise certain taxes on us. So it's just like we already had those things already, and our families gave it back to them.
They didn't give it back to them.
Not even give it back. They took it from us, you know what I'm saying, where we didn't even have it, protections to even keep it. You know what I'm saying? Even some people from ADOS who actually had families who had land and everything, they don't even know how to farm anymore. These name a person right now who's a black farmer.
Let me say this. It's a lot of white people that don't know how to farm either. They just get paid not to farm.
But let me just say this too.
But we're looking to for ourselves. We're not looking for other people. We know white people can't farm.
No. Hold on a second. Like, stop saying that we don't have people who know how to farm. Like, the farmers just brought a lawsuit because they were being sold fake seeds, and then you had them not getting. You think about the settlement that the farmers, were fighting for, and partially gotten. A bunch of stuff happened under the Obama administration. What was happening is that they were locked out of like the stuff that let you be able to farm, like the USDA loans and all of that stuff. They were shut out of what it means to be an American farmer. So it's not like the people who got sold those bad seeds, those black farmers, they know how to farm. They just
hey, caller, I'm gonna have to let you go. I want to take another caller before the night
ends.
Problem. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate your opinion. Let me take one more. Caller, what's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, this is Vanita Brown calling from San Francisco Bay Area. What's up?
What's up, man? I just want to say one last thing. We got to stop blaming ourselves. We live in a system that has incarcerated more black men than all women on the planet. We live in a system where they sell us fake seeds. We live to farm. We live in a system where black folks were created as a permanent underclass. And what's happened, though, is instead of blaming the system, we kind of slick say, well, it's still your fault. That's why you failing. I don't think we understand how much we're indoctrinated with our own failures. But you want to say something? I'll give you about 2 minutes to say anything you want to.
Okay, I'm going to try to be concise. So Angela Rye, I think, because I listened to some of the videos, and she is in this space as like on an assignment. I think they all are, and they're not really trying to understand the data because that's their assignment, is to throw us off track. And I think if we continue to look at her and see her as we move forward, it's going to be obvious that that's what she is on assignment to do. The other thing I wanted to say to Yvette, we had a great show on this week, and there was something you mentioned when you talked about the Jews and how they received their reparations and how critical to them receiving it there was a public apology that was issued to them. And when I saw the tweet of Nancy Pelosi, I thought of that in the context of, especially in a legal sense. In order for us to receive the reparations, there has to be a public announcement coming out saying we apologize for this. And so I think that's going to be a critical piece as well for, if it's going to come into fruition.
Think about
the
this,
other thing.
caller.
I'm
Think
sorry.
about this. No, you gotta let us get in here because this is powerful. Think about this. Your first black president. I don't consider them to be African American.
Yeah.
I've talked about that before. But your first black president instituted a program called DACA for basically people that are not citizens of America with an executive order, but did not apologize for America having slavery. The first black president. Forget before we even get to reparations.
Right.
The gravity of that, while you still put pictures up, should make you take them pictures down. But continue on, and if you could keep it short, because we're coming to the end.
Okay. And so what you just said, it speaks to that, because that public apology would just segue into the reparations. And something Yvette said was, we don't want to put the cart before the horse. So what I've been doing is saying not just reparations, but the tangibles. And I think we need to focus on what those are. So I pulled up things like the GI Bill and the Civil Rights Act and the Homestead Act. If we could tie those things into to get a political education of what the tangibles are, to see what policies have set us back. And because what I'm seeing on Twitter is we're just going back and forth on, okay, who gets the reparations? You don't get reparations. And we don't have a really good, solid understanding because it's complex.
Well, let me say this. Let me say this as well. This government is among the wealthiest ever. What we can't get caught up also is not holding this government to being responsible to reviewing this. They can review everything else. Understand that the part of what we're doing right now on Twitter is probably just as important as the element of the money. Because if you don't got the identity component right, then we won't even get reparations. Reparations will look like Black success does right now. I would say that we're 42 million people, but the 7 to 8 million immigrants are 40% of Black success in America. Understand that that's the way reparations would go out right now to me. I'm not having that. We're going to change. We've already changed the discussion. Everybody don't understand where it's going, but where it's going is you're going to have to give this to ADOS, as it should. If they get theirs from the CARICOM, we're not going to ask for theirs from the CARICOM as they get theirs from European countries. I believe they should. But as Sandy Darity said, he dropped the bomb. He said Shirley Chisholm, Marcus Garvey, this is Sandy Darity of Duke University, leading intergenerational economist. They should get theirs from Europe, as they should. This is the discussion that hasn't been had. And we need to have it because you can't deal with reparations without boundaries. Thank you so much for calling, caller.
All right, keep the fire going. Keep it going.
Thank you.
Yvette, look, we're closing out the show. You want to say anything last thing on this discussion?
Well, the only thing I want to kind of drive home is that, I don't think we have been very clear, in asking these people. Like, a lot of people are coming forth to say, like, well, what this isn't, or, well, what about not? And I'm not talking about the gentleman who just called. I'm talking mostly about the talking heads on social media, and they're saying, well, people have been brought up the subject. Of course they have. We've been here 400 years plus. Of course they brought it up. But the question that I being turned back on those people is, well, what have you been doing? What have you? Now, don't talk about people. You've been in this space. Like, Roland Martin was in this space as like the only. Understand that when you look at those tweets, 2010, 2012, 2015, for those early years, Roland Martin.
You talking about tweets where he said that reparations wasn't possible? Just being
when he said the reparations was a pipe dream and it's never gonna happen. Understand that this wasn't just the Roland Martin that we see today on YouTube with me and Antonio running themselves around in circles, going live 24 hours a day, throwing stuff up. Understand that this was one of the most prominent faces on CNN and on mainstream news, telling Black America and white America the thing that would make us whole, ADOS whole, is not possible.
Who was president? Who was president?
Yes, and he was saying it in such a way with so much dismissiveness, because that's the problem too. These people aren't serious people. Like somebody just said in the chat, like Roland Martin told somebody, boy, bye. Like all these people who just run around using little hip hop slang and
Come on.
just doing little weird stuff. Like, understand that what you're watching is not serious people. They don't have serious thoughts. They're temperamentally and emotionally unstable. And these are all problems when it comes to dealing with this. But he was in a space to do that. And he was in a space, even behind closed doors, to do that kind of advocacy. And you can see now by what he's saying and what he said in the past that what he was telling those politicians. Oh, we know that ain't gonna never happen, and we could do it because Roland Martin is a do-for-selfer. He doesn't really believe in it. That's why he has such a bad time on Fox News, because he believes in charter schools and all this other. He's not a guy who believes in reparations. So you know a tree by the fruit. So when you saw him on Fox News, you saw that the fruit was rotten. He was stumbling around and throwing books in the air. Yeah, because he don't believe in it. Step aside. You're not a true believer. Step aside then.
Look, let me say one more thing. Roland Martin was saying all of that about reparations when Obama was president. I'm just gonna drop that on the end of this discussion. Look, everybody gonna have to watch out now. ADOS is here. Understand we just in the first phase though. All this like heat that you've been feeling on Twitter, it's just gonna grow. It's just gonna grow. We not playing. Just recognize the reality that black folks aren't just a sleeping giant anymore. They awake. They done sat up. They just wiping their eyes right now. And when they stand up, what they going to stand up for is ADOS, reparations, a black agenda, not being at the bottom anymore, owning a piece of the America their families built. This is what we here for. Reparations revolution will not be televised. It's going to be on YouTube, Dash Radio, Tone Talks, Breaking Brown, YouTube, Mondays and Wednesdays, 6:30. 6:30 Pacific at least, 9:30 Eastern. Yvette, thank you so much for calling. I appreciate you calling in.
No problem.
We had this discussion. Check Yvette out on BreakingBrown.com or Breaking Brown on YouTube, Mondays and Wednesdays at 9:30 Eastern. Or you can catch me here on Tone Talks, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. We out. We'll see you next week. Thank you for tuning in to Tone Talks.